Hello, friends. Welcome to the Quarantine Zone. This is a guitarist special, a guitar nerd edition, and I'm really pleased to have a mega beast, a beast from the West Country, kind of, Mr. Denny Ilett tuning in. So thanks everyone for joining. Yes, Denny, thank you for carving out the time. How's it going?
Jude, good, thank you. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. What are you drinking, man? Lager of some
Um,
sort, or cider.
I've got one of these
Okay.
them. I can't get it in the camera. One of them, yeah.
Yeah, Moretti.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, I could have just said it, couldn't I?
I wasn't sure, but so yeah, I'm really excited, everyone. We've got two awesome videos, duo videos that Denny and I have put together for you,
Ooh.
and we're going to talk lots of guitar stuff. So the most recent time that I crossed paths with Denny was I think it was your hometown, Denny. Not to give everyone your full address, but
Yeah.
I was at a studio recording in Swindon just a couple of days before you were there,
Mm.
and you came down, and it was nice. We were hanging out. It was that, like, it felt kind of old school, like studio hangs, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were recording there? 'Cause this is a very exciting project, which I think is ultra cool.
Well, as you know, that studio's got that wonderful big live room, hasn't it? And so I've got had my 16-piece big band in there, everyone in the same room. It's fantastic. And we've got this project that we basically just play the music of Jimi Hendrix, but it's reworked to suit all those horns and whatnot, you know. So that was a thing that we started in 2018 for the 50th anniversary of Electric Ladyland being released. So we called it the Electric Lady Big Band, and the idea was just to do it as a gig at the Bristol Jazz Festival. Um, and at the end of the gig, we were all little bit looking at each other, going, "Christ, that was great," you know.
Mm,
And so everyone in the band was going, "Right, we have to, next thing we have to record it." You know, my intention was just to do it as that one-off, you know.
mm.
But so anyway, we went a few months later. We went to that same studio, Crescent Records, and recorded that, released that. Then we started getting some gigs. Then lockdown started, you know, and I by which time I got an agent, and we got some nice festivals in like Cheltenham and other ones, you know, and all that got cancelled. So a year off. So I thought, right, okay, I think I'll spend this time writing some new charts for another album. So that's what we just did. Yeah, we did the whole thing
Wicked.
live in a day.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this one is not, it's not a full album, it's some choice tunes from different
No,
albums, right?
it's just a random mix of things from his little short career. You know, a couple of them that weren't even officially released that came out on those compilations that came out after he died.
Mm.
You know, things that were sort of extended studio jams that ended up as something, or songs that he was working on that he never quite finished, or that sort of stuff. But we also do some of the early singles and that as well.
Yeah.
So you know, it's going to be fun, and it's coming out on vinyl too, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah. That's great, man. So,
Yeah.
folks, if you do want to check out the first album, which is this one right here, there we go, Electric Lady Big Band.
Mm.
Um, Bandcamp, Bandcamp, we love Bandcamp. Bandcamp is always the best place to go because
Yeah,
you can listen, but you can also buy directly from the artists usually
yeah,
there. So yeah, so we
yeah.
love
You can
Bandcamp.
you can download it, or you can buy a CD.
Yeah,
You know, so there's two ways of, you know what I mean.
yeah,
Um, and I when I look at it, it's a mix for me. I sell probably more downloads than CDs,
mm,
which is why we decided to do this one on vinyl. You know, I
great.
think vinyl's a bit hip again now, isn't it? Well, it has been for a while, but
Yeah,
you know.
it's interesting because you think downloads are sort of the thing, right? Everyone just listens on their phone, maybe in the
Mm.
car with a CD, but yeah, we're getting a couple of big ups for Bandcamp. What's up, Andrea? Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey,
So yeah, the Hendrix thing. Not to be too pluggy about it, but that clip that you played earlier sounded so huge.
well,
The
I
drums were slamming. Lawrence Cuttle was
Yeah,
slamming, and the lineup. I mean, I don't know if we will go through the whole lineup, but every single member of this band is sort of well-known heavy hitter
yeah,
on the scene. So
yeah, yeah. Um, Daisy Palmer is playing drums on that. You can't see her very well because she's in the booth. But the guy that did the engineering, he thought, I bet as we were recording, he just came in and started, and he sent it to me the other day and said, "Oh, this is all I managed to get," you know. So what I did is I synced it up with the mix that we've done.
mm,
So that little what you hear and what you see is the same. You know, it's the
yeah,
same thing going.
live.
But yeah, Daisy Palmer's awesome. But Winston Rollins in the trombone section and Nathaniel Facey, who I don't know why he's not a superstar. He's just the most ridiculous sax player. You know, do you know him?
I do.
He's
I do.
incredible. You
Yeah,
know,
he's really good.
uh,
I share
yeah.
those sentiments. I'm kind of like, why, why isn't everyone talking about him? But
Well, I think probably he's actually too sensible to be a full-time jazz musician. You know,
yeah, that probably
because
has something to do with it.
he has a career, doesn't he? Works on the underground.
Yeah.
And but I remember him back when he first turned up with Tomorrow's Warriors and that type of thing when he was a kid. You know,
Mm.
I thought this kid is going to be amazing. But I think he probably just he's a little bit like Wes Montgomery. You know, Wes Montgomery only ever saw the guitar as a hobby, didn't he? You
Really, I
know,
didn't know that.
he treated it. He just to him it was a hobby. You know, because before he was discovered, he was working in factories and
Yeah.
he had I think he had two jobs to support all those kids that he had. He had about 7 kids, didn't he? And then the going out to play in the clubs at night was his hanging out time, you know.
Wow.
And I love that about Wes because it really comes across in his
It
playing
does
that
come across. He's smiling. He's
he's not
relaxed.
worried about it. He's just having fun, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when I hear Nathaniel play, I can sort of hear the same thing.
Right.
You know, he's not scared about am I going to impress the other guys. He's just going, this is my day out, man. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Ah,
It's
nice.
wonderful. You
That's
know.
great, man.
Yeah, so there's him. Ian Bellamy is in the saxes as well. Lawrence Cottle's playing bass. Yeah, I mean, like you say, everyone in there is like pretty heavy,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
It's great.
which they had to be because that little bit of film that I posted today, that was the first run through of that tune, and it ended up being
Really.
the top. Yeah, they hadn't even seen the chart before.
Oh my
So
God.
I mean, I'm not really a great reader, but I do the writing for the band,
Yeah.
and I always try to sort of worry about whether they're going to be able to read what I'm writing, but they're just like just like reading a
Well, you
newspaper
did.
to
You
these.
did fine. Obviously, you like reading the newspaper, like reading the Sun. There's lots of short words as well. Like reading an easy newspaper, I guess.
Well, that's how I read music, one note at a time, you know.
Do you write the notes underneath or above? I sometimes.
I'm not that bad.
Okay, yeah. So just in case anyone doesn't know, guitar players are notorious for being terrible at reading music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Denny, do you remember? I have to say, actually, serious respect. That shirt is really tasty, man. Where did you get it?
I can't remember. I've had it for
Great.
quite a few years. There's actually quite a few gig photos with me with this on from quite a few years ago. So I think I probably need to
You need to swap it out.
retire it, you know.
It's
Yeah.
good though. Anything with like floral vibes is good. Man, do
Yeah.
you remember? Okay, so by the way, everyone, right?
The first time I turned up on a gig with this,
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. Someone in the band said, "Have you got the matching bottoms at home?" He thought I was wearing a pajama top.
That'd be quite funny. That would look good though.
Yeah.
Um, right, people, you probably noticed, right, from the intro flyer that I showed, this one here, that Denny and I are actually seen together. Well, we didn't break social distancing guidelines. This is actually from when we met. It's this picture here.
Mm.
You remember that, Denny?
I do, yeah.
So yeah, I get
I was sent up to London to interview you.
Yeah, they obviously they needed someone nerdy enough who knew about all the jazz, jazz stuff, and you're like an encyclopedia, man. You know so about jazz and blues and everything. So yeah, that was fun. Let's talk about some of the other things you've done. This, which I only listened to and found out about this week when I was just having a little Google around.
Oh, okay.
Tell me about this.
Oh, blimey, that's years ago.
Yeah, how many?
2008.
Okay.
So at that time, I was working with a singer from New Orleans called Lillian Boutte.
Mm,
She's the Boutte family are like a New Orleans clan, you know.
mm, mm.
Um, and I started working with her in '96 until 2016, so 20 years, and that was my job for that amount of time. We toured all over the planet, you
Wow.
know, like hundreds of gigs every year. It was amazing. She was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, and so somehow I ended up somewhere, and a bloke that was at one of our gigs, he had a little record label, and asked me if I wanted to do an album. So that's what calling the children home was a thing that Buddy Bolden used to say in New Orleans. You know, that was his way of like drawing people away from other gigs to come to his, you know, and he'd walk into where something was happening and start blowing his trumpet, and then people would follow like the Pied Piper, you know.
Yeah.
And his thing was, I'm just calling the children home. So that was the inspiration. I was very into the New Orleans thing at that
Mm.
time. Well, I still am, but really then. So yeah, that was the thing. It was a little label called New Gene that does a lot of blues. Had guys like Matt Schofield on the label at the time, and so that I just did that. Yeah,
Great. Yeah. Tell me about this. Yeah, I just did this. So,
I just did that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Couple of other highlights from the Islet catalog are the JTC thing. So I thought maybe you'd just done one or two, but when I was researching, I found about 10 of them. So JTC, Jam Track Central Folks, is this thing where they've got backing tracks and like transcriptions of solos and licks, and you've got a load of stuff on there, Denny. But there's also like there's metal, there's jazz, there's like
Yeah,
melodic minor, there's technical stuff. But yeah.
yeah.
So you've been around,
Well,
man.
it's most JTC is mostly it's run by that guy called Jan Kirker,
Mm.
who and he refers to most of the contributors as the sword swallowers. You know, the shredders. You know,
Yeah.
he calls them. He says, yeah. So I was writing for Guitarist magazine, which is why I got to interview you. I
Okay.
was doing a series called Aces, which is all about kind of trying to introduce a lot of the rock and blues guys to some of these sort of earlier legends like Charlie Christian or whoever, you know. And I did a whole series of those, and I did one on T-Bone Walker,
Mm.
and from that, the JTC people saw that interview and asked me if I wanted to do some kind of jazzy blues things. So, despite the fact that that's not what I always play, that I'm the jazzy blues guy on JTC now.
Mm.
And as Jan says, he said we need something to offset the sword swallowers.
Right. And you are that.
Yeah. So yeah, I've done quite a few. I'm actually going back in early August to do some more packages for them, some more filming and that.
Great.
So yeah, I'm going to do a kind of blues with changes type thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wicked.
you know, blues with the odd flat nine, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah,
Yeah,
getting a
yeah,
bit of color into the mix. I definitely think that that'll be a kind of gateway drug. Like for me, it was when I was listening to a lot of blues and rock and stuff, but you just hear these like bonus colors that are in jazz, and you go, oh, what's that? I just want to learn it, and you sort of like set foot in it, but then you just get like carried on this sort of in the
yeah,
wake or something, and like I'm still like looking, where was it? What was I trying to do when I wanted to learn jazz, like 20
yeah,
years
yeah,
ago?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's great.
Well, I mean, the way that I look at it is that, I mean, I think probably even now, after all these years, blues is still the thing that really gets me, you know. And actually, funnily enough, T-Bone Walker was one of the first guitar players that I heard, because there wasn't a lot of guitar in the house where I was growing up, because my
Mm,
dad was a trumpet player, so
mm, mm.
everything was trumpets, you know, Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie and all those guys. So I didn't really hear guitars growing up, except T-Bone Walker, because my dad liked T-Bone Walker. He also liked Django. But there was something about T-Bone Walker, and I just loved the sound of blues on the guitar. It's just
Mm.
like, do you know what I mean? It's just, and it's such a satisfying thing to do. So when it comes to, and I do obviously, I do a lot of teaching, and most of what I teach is blues or rock guitar players that want that extra little bit of harmony,
Mm.
you know. and they come sort of overwhelmed with books of modes and all this sort of stuff, and going, how am I going to get into this? And I would say, look, don't worry about any of that. Let's just pick 2 notes that are different to what you're already doing, and add them in, the flat 9 or the sharp 9 or whatever, the flat 5, you know. And I think it's a really nice way of doing it, just one thing at a time, you know, rather than saying, right, here's a book of modes, go and learn them, and then we'll start talking about it.
I mean, having to read a book before
you can make music with 2 notes, can't you?
You can indeed, yeah. And I think, I mean, you're only, you know, all the notes, you don't even have to move your hand. You don't really even have to learn anything new. There's probably a really interesting note staring at you this very moment, you know. So, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's being bold enough and being encouraged by a teacher such as yourself to go and play that. And then I guess some people like to know that, yeah, that's right, that clash, it's a good clash, you know, be brave with it and so on. But,
yeah. Well, just understanding that, you know, the 5 chord is ripe for extension. You can put pretty much anything on it, can't you?
To be messed
you
with.
Know,
you must mess with it.
Around with, That's where you know, and the rest of it, you know, you've got to be careful with, you know. But when it comes to that, so I go to them, look, let's just focus on that chord. Put 1 note there that you didn't do before, and it's like light bulbs for people, you know. It's and I always like that. I always tried to remind myself of what it was like when I was trying to hear things, because I mean, when I started playing, there wasn't any YouTube, there wasn't any even internet or anything, you know.
Right.
And you just had to learn by listening to records and hope to try and pick some of it up, you know. And literally sit there until something sounded like what you had in your head, you know. And I still try to remember what that's like, you know, and just that thing of finding, like, you know, if you take, I know we're getting a bit geeky here, but
that's good.
If you take the 3rd up to the 5th, you know, and normally, you know, people just think 3rd goes to the 5th, or if you want, you can play the scale tone in between, the 4th, but then there's that chromatic note in the middle. And so then suddenly you've got a chromatic line to work with, you know, and little things like that I worked out when I was about 18 or 17, I still play them. Because music's not that complicated. That's how music goes, according to what's in my head, you know.
Yeah, great.
I love it.
The first thing I remember figuring out was just the open strings on the guitar and going, high E, 3rd fret open, 3rd fret open, 2nd open, 2nd open, 2nd open, 3rd open. I don't know why. I just started playing that. And then obviously going, this is important information, you know, like when you're older, you go, right, okay, it's pentatonic scale, not that. So thanks everyone for tuning in. This is Denny Ilett, obviously, and we're getting an idea of how busy you've been. JTC, we've got the Hendrix thing, got that record, Call the Children Home, we've got all the jazz gigs, we've got all the teaching, and after this video, let's talk a little bit about Bristol Jazz Festival and stuff. But if anyone is watching and has like questions and stuff like that, like special guitar nerd questions for Denny, please do type them in. And also
or questions for Ant.
Yeah. That exactly. If there's anything that I haven't already talked about, then also you please do rate my shirt. Is it 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10? And rate Denny's shirt out of 9 as well, obviously. And, no, just kidding. So Denny, knowing how busy you are, I was all the more like grateful and really excited when I knew you were up for doing one of these collab things. So talk to me about Conte Candoli. Has anyone heard of Conte Candoli? I, in my ignorance, I'm ashamed to say, had not. But do you know he's playing much, or was this piece just a contrafact?
Well, as I said earlier, my dad was a trumpet player, so I actually know much more about trumpet players than I do guitar players. Conte Candoli was part of a sibling duo. His brother was Pete Candoli.
Yeah.
You would have heard both of them thousands of times. They're on Sinatra records. Okay. They're on all sorts of soundtrack stuff. Conte Candoli was in the Tonight Show band for 25 years.
Okay.
But he was also very much part of that West Coast scene in the 50s, you know.
Yeah.
and probably is not more well known because he was such a good studio player and he got all the studio gigs. So his name goes under the radar, like unlike somebody like Chet Baker,
Right.
who they're all kind of around at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
So that's Monty Candoli.
Yeah. So this is I think I suggested we do Groovin' High, and then you said, "And check this one out. This is called Groovin' Higher." And I'm a firm subscriber to the More is More school. So from the title, I just immediately So we've got the head in to this piece is Groovin' Higher by Conte Candoli, and okay, let's put Denny's knowledge to the test. I'm sure you know what song the chords come from.
They come from an old song called Whispering.
Which was published in what year? Decade.
Oh, I don't know, but probably the late 10s or 20s.
You got it, man. 1920. I knew you'd get it, Denny. I knew you would get it. Great. So the head in Groovin' High, head out Dizzy Gillespie's Groovin' High, and we hope you enjoy it. And this is my first thing on my new nylon string guitar, I think, which I
lovely.
Thought it was a good idea to buy a guitar in lockdown when I had no gigs. I don't really know what my reasoning was. Anyway, hope you like it. Here we go. Groovin' Higher. the ending, man. We should write that out. Work out what it is. I like it.
I was just thinking halfway through that I haven't moved from this chair since. And actually, I also noticed that when we started the eights,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of your solo, I actually play whispering
Yes.
for a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know that tune much better than I know Grooving High.
Really?
Yeah, because I do a lot of the old sort of more swing and trad gigs.
Yeah. Yeah. You sing as well, actually, don't you?
Well, yeah, I open my mouth and shout and make a noise. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but nice playing, man.
Oh, you too, mate.
Yeah, there's a couple of phrases that were quite Django-y to me, and I was like, ooh, that was nice. And yeah, vibrato in jazz guitar. Oh, thanks, Tom. Thanks for digging it, Mr. Tom. Appreciate it, Mr. Gurr. Yeah, vibrato. So I tend to not use that much actually, unless I'm playing a very long note and I want to make it do something. But but you use quite a lot, and I like that more blues influence coming through. Or
it's only when I actually watch myself like that or listen to myself that I've noticed that I actually probably don't leave any notes without doing something to them. You know, I'll sort of grab a note and do something with it before moving on, regardless. And I don't know why that is. It probably comes from listening to so many trumpet players when I was a kid, or horn players, you know, where you don't really you almost hear a kind of corruption of every note that you're hearing. You know, when do you know what I mean? There's
it's articulation on every pitch. Yeah, for sure. And I think with guitar, that's I mean, it's definitely something that gets lost with a lot of jazz guitar players, where, I mean, first of all, the tone can be so dark that the transients from the attack don't really come through at all. It's not like a value judgment, it's just a fact for a lot of people's sound. And I think that can be great because it facilitates other things, basically, maybe a smoothness or a certain dynamic. But yeah, anyway, sounded nice. I also like, man, that even though the field is kind of straight, your lines were quite swingy, just ever so slightly. The feel is really nice. I like that. I don't even know if you think about. You probably don't, but
I don't think about that. But if you know, if somebody says something like that, then I do think about it, and I think, well, I don't think about it. I just play. The older that I get, the more I try to just play. And I don't worry about it anymore. I don't care what other people think. I don't care how many other great guitar players there are around. I just want to be happy and get together with other people and see how nice we can make something, you know, sound.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't beat myself up over, you know, I mean, years ago, if you don't mind me telling this little story.
Please do.
I was about 18 years old and I went to see Tal Farlow in London.
Wow.
And I hadn't really seen like a proper legend jazz guitar player up to that point. And this guy that was kind of teaching me said, well, look, Tal Farlow's playing. I'd never even heard of him. Anyway, there he was. He was in his 70s. And I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's got these enormous hands.
Yeah.
He can play these fantastic, like almost like piano voicings
Guitar
on the
looks like a little twig, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And he just played beautifully, but he wasn't shredding it. He just was really playing. Everything sounded so melodic, you know. And even the sort of licks were melodic, if you see what I mean. They weren't like, they were all part of the overall stream of thought. Anyway, I was talking to him afterwards. I went up to him and I asked him for advice for a kid starting out and all that. And he said an amazing thing to me that I've never forgotten. Yeah. He said, get used to the feeling of going home from a gig and wanting to beat yourself up over how you played. He said, because it doesn't ever stop. You know, he said, I'll get it tonight. You know, he said, but just get used to it and just learn to just let it be. Don't beat yourself up. You know, that was his thing. And it did take me quite a few years to really listen to that. But now I'm getting on a bit. I really do think about that all the time, and I just think, if I'm going to get my gear into the back of a car and drive off and go somewhere, I'm going to do everything I possibly can just to have a nice time and not worry about anything. And actually, I play much more freely, and I'm much more connected to my ideas. Because that's always the problem, isn't it, with guitar players, or non-horn players, I would say, is that often your chops can get way ahead of your ideas.
Yeah.
And you can often fall into a trap of being a slave to your chops. Whereas I'm desperately trying to go the other way and just adhere to what little simple ideas I've got and just play them. And actually, I feel much better about music than when I was really trying to do something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Weird thing.
I mean,
But,
melody is a more powerful tool than the most complex rhythm or the most crazy intervallic line or whatever it is. Melody
Absolutely.
will just slam through anything else like a freight train. Of course, melody can be contained within complex ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, you
Yeah.
were saying.
The really great players like Dizzy Gillespie, or they had it all. They had both, didn't they?
Yeah.
Andy,
your ideas get way ahead of your chops.
No, the other way round.
I thought I was with you, Denny.
The chops get ahead of your ideas, so you can be sitting there shredding and shedding your scales and your arpeggiating things, and they can sometimes become the thing that you play as opposed to what you hear, feel, and think.
But Andy's got the right idea there, because the way it should be is that your ideas are somewhere, and then you develop the chops to express those ideas that you have. That's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
It can be either way around, I guess.
I was talking to one of the guitarist interviews I did was with George Benson, and I had a wonderful conversation with him, and I couldn't shut him up. I was trying to get away from him in the end because I thought I'm taking his time up, but he just kept. He was wonderful, and he told me so many great things. And one of the questions that a lot of people want to know about George Benson is, when he's singing along with his lines, is he playing what he sings or singing what he plays?
Yeah.
Right. And which way round is it? And so I asked him that question, which way round it is, and he said a great thing. He said it depends which one's coming out the nicest. he'll follow the one that And then say that facility on the guitar obviously gets way ahead of what vocal chops can do, and that so he feels that when he sings along he plays more melodically. And you can hear that when he plays. I mean, when he's not singing along, he's doing ridiculous octave jumps and all sorts of stuff which you would never be able to sing.
And his right hand, his picking hand, every now and then, like on that record that we were listening to in the studio, what's it called?
Mental.
Off the top, he's just so burning on that.
It is
One thing that's
mental.
interesting about Benson, I remember having lessons years ago from a guy who sort of knew him quite well and had studied with, I think he was like a friend of his, basically. And he transcribed all these solos, and we had to play them exactly with the same fingering that Benson used, because all the licks, every single idea was coming from a chord shape.
Yeah.
So, it was really rooted in harmony. And I think that's what, someone like Benson, or indeed anyone whose lines tell any kind of story or make sense in a harmony, they are actually physically rooted in the harmony, to be honest.
It's become a school now, hasn't it? The chord tone soloing method,
Right.
It's whereas actually in Benson's day and before, that was what you did, because that's where the heavy notes are. That's the notes that you target, are the notes that are in the chord,
Yeah.
So of course it makes sense that on the guitar. I mean, I have this thing when I teach. Also, I don't know if you've found this, that people, when they're starting to get it together, they actually are treating chords and single line as two separate things.
Yeah. Why?
And and I always go, look, just put your fingers on that A-7 chord, and they go, and they go, right, there are all the notes that you want to target.
Yeah.
Whatever you play, it doesn't matter what you play, as long as you land on one of those at a good point, that line's going to be satisfactory.
Yeah. I remember another pitfall with some pupils is they go, I need to work on my comping. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it then. And sort of trying to break down that barrier that improvising lines is one thing and comping is another. So if you can play a scale with one note, do the same thing with a chord. You know, you want to be just as mobile with harmony, I think.
Absolutely. And of course, it should really be all about rhythm anyway, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
If you
if
think
it's not,
about
it probably
it.
sucks, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. I don't personally care what note somebody's playing if there's no groove there,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, you can get away with an awful. We're talking about colourful notes and weird notes. You can get away with absolutely insane choices of notes if a rhythmic thread is there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the most fascinating things that Dizzy Gillespie said when he was talking about bebop, he said people misunderstand it. They think it's about extended harmony and all this kind of thing. He said no, it's not. It was just a new way of approaching rhythm. And so he said when I play, I always think of a rhythm first, and I fit the notes to the rhythm, not the other way around. You know.
Wow.
And he said the importance of rhythm can't be overestimated. He said, and put it this way, he said, I can be on a festival stage and I can play one note, but if the rhythm's right, everybody's dancing.
Mm. Amazing.
Says everything you need to know.
Wicked.
You know. Yeah.
I love that, man. Damn, I need to get you on some more of these stories. You've got so many interesting stories. I forgot this about you. Um, do say any more that come to mind.
Yeah.
So Denny and I both have some things to plug. I will be performing with my band, my quintet, The Sleeper Wakes, my album that came out in July last year. Finally, we're going to launch it Thursday, August the 5th. I will be at Ronnie Scott's. My debut under my own name in the main house in Ronnie. So I'm really, really excited. Please do get tickets and stuff. I'll post a link for tickets. But I mean, go to Ronnie Scott's and just, go to the 5th of August and you'll find it. So I'm really excited about that. And Denny has the 3rd and 4th of September at Ronnie Scott's. And then you said the 5th in Bristol. Where are you playing in Bristol? September?
It's at a place called Lakota Gardens.
Cool.
So there's like a mini festival, a weekend mini festival. People like Pee Wee Ellis, Dennis Rollins, my Jimi Hendrix big band, some really shit hot local Bristol guys. I don't know how familiar you are with the Bristol scene, but there's some phenomenal players down there.
Yeah.
Doing great stuff. So yeah, it's a weekend of stuff. So I'm there on the Sunday, which is the 5th. Yeah, but yeah, Ronnie's on the 3rd and 4th. We're doing 4 houses, as it were. We're doing those. We do the 75 minutes, then they another crowd come in, you do another. So there's plenty of tickets available if anybody wants to come and see us play our new album.
Maybe it'll even be full capacity by then. Who knows? Fingers crossed.
That is the idea. Yeah.
Great.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk a little bit more about Bristol. So I thought I kind of forgot about this actually, but so Denny is involved with programming the Bristol Jazz Festival, and we thought it would be cool to do a little public service announcement. So if someone wants to get a gig at a jazz festival, how do you do it? You were saying that you got some bookings at Cheltenham, you got this and that, and if someone was to write to you saying, "Hey, Denny, can I have a gig at Bristol Jazz Festival?" What should they say? What shouldn't they say? Is it quite open? What are your main thoughts about doing
Right. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I'll try to get through them quickly.
Yeah.
So I am the co-founder of Bristol Jazz Festival. So I kind of was the one that got set up to be the artistic director. And then the guy that I set it up with, he's the producer. He does all the form filling and fundraising, all that stuff, So in the run up to the festival, in the months before, when booking is open, I will probably get, without exaggerating, about 300 emails a day from artists wanting a gig.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing that any artist needs to know is that these things are run by a small and dedicated group of people who are just doing it in their spare time, as I am. I don't get paid to do it. I do it as a volunteer, and I try to make things happen. So I cannot possibly answer all of those emails. And for me, I'm not one of those people that sets up a stock reply thing.
Yeah.
So I have to have filters, you know, and artists have to understand that that's the way it works. Please don't get offended if the festival doesn't get back to you. It's nothing personal ever. But I do have filters. One is spell my name correctly. You know, the amount of times it says "Dear Danny," you know, or stuff like that, you know, that one's in the bin straight away. At least make the effort to find out who the guy is and address him or her correctly. The second one is don't put in your in the subject line. Don't put things like Grammy nominated 10 times this winner of. Because most of us know that 9 times out of 10 that stuff's bullshit. Sorry for my language. Just, you know, and don't put too many links and information and you know links and you know, things that take you somewhere else. Because people's festival inboxes will send that to spam straight away, and it won't get seen at all.
But you need you must need one link or like a video to see the band, no? Or
one link is fine, but you know, I get them with 10 different links, you know, to all sorts of things. If you're going to send a link, don't just send it. You know, the majority of artists will get the gig within 30 seconds of someone clicking on that link. They will either get the gig or they won't. They're not going to listen to a whole concert or a whole album. So you don't need to send that stuff, and it clogs up inboxes and all that sort of stuff. However, there is the slightly less nice side of it is that the majority of people booking festivals will already know who they want on their program.
Right.
So it is not easy to break through that. That's just the way it is. You know, when we sit down and think about, you know, a potential program, it's pretty much full of names before we've even looked at any emails, you know. So that is a problem for up and coming artists. However, I have definitely on many occasions been surprised. I've looked at something, it's had the right look about it. My name's been spelt properly. It hasn't said this is the best thing that's ever happening in the world in the title. It's a simple email politely asking if booking is available with one link, and you know what, that's the kind of thing that I'll click on.
Cool.
And there have been loads of times when I've done that and I've gone, actually this band's really good, and it's people, you know, they're young people, so they're not necessarily well known to the old dogs like me, and that, you know, it just keep it simple would be my biggest advice to anyone thinking, why is it that festivals never get back to me, you know? And of course it happens, and it will happen to 99% of people that send an email. There just isn't time to go through them.
So don't be offended if you don't hear back.
Please don't be offended.
One link, and keep it simple, and research and work out who you're emailing, probably. Absolutely. And also, you know, the amount of times I get festival submissions from bands that are not relevant to our festival at all, because they've Googled the festival and they're just doing a blanket mail. And that stuff clogs up my inbox more than anything else. And it's sometimes can prevent me from actually getting to the real stuff. So only apply to the festivals that actually feel are going to actually represent your music. You know, there's no point. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I get like submissions from death metal groups from Norway. You know, can we come and play your festival? If I'd known that, I would have asked you to just like do a screenshot, but scrub out the email address so we could see.
Man, I've had hundreds of absolutely hilarious ones. You know, even like so, you know, there's still that scene for the sort of 1980s pop bands like Kajagoogoo. You know, I get submissions from their agent you know, the agents they just literally find out what other festivals are going on, and they just blanket out to all of them, and that is a shame, you know, because that gets in the way of, you know, what I'm saying is research the festival, look at what their musical policy is, and say, would my music fit this, and target those, and you're much more likely to get a response that way. I feel, you know.
Great. That's such useful information. And I think one thing that Denny hasn't said, because it's basically taken for granted, is that the music is really good. So when, you know, when Denny or another program is clicking on a link, it needs to be really good. So you've got to be happy with the music, and like when you're going to share it with a programmer like Denny, for example.
I mean, you know, it's a new thing. I mean, it wasn't like this when I was coming up, because you used to send cassettes, you know, you put a cassette in the post, you know. But video links are really important now. Almost everyone wants to see actually a video of the band. I know I don't personally agree with that, but because I don't care what people look like, you know, it's what they play like, because I'm in. But it is a thing for most festivals. They're going to want a video link that's actually pretty professional.
Video's expensive to produce, man.
I know.
For up and coming people, man. I mean,
it is tough. But you know, young people are resourceful. They probably got a mate with some decent cameras. Make it fun. Don't sweat it. Just have some fun.
Yeah.
You know, because even if the festival turns you down, you've got some product, and another one will pick it up. You know, put it on YouTube. People will find it eventually. You know, you get there in the end. But the most important thing is your music has to be good. You know, I mean, I get asked this all the time. Denny, how do I get into doing gigs in Europe? You know, and you just have to be good.
Yeah,
good.
First of all, make sure you're good. If you're in any doubt, maybe do a bit more work until you feel confident enough. And
even globally, it's a small scene. You know, somebody in Australia, you're only going to be 2 or 3 people away from knowing that person. You know, it doesn't matter how far away it is. It word gets around very, very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, the next thing is, and it actually is vital, you've got to be a nice person. You've got to be cool. You've got to not be, don't take your ego on stage. Don't, you know, because let's face it, if you're on the road with a band, 90% of it is hanging out and just trying to and the people that aren't willing to get their hands dirty and muck in with that get sussed out very quickly. And they don't get the gigs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying I'm a nice guy, but but I do know how to go on the road and not cause anyone any trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll bet, man. I'll bet.
Absolutely vital. That in fact, that might even be almost as important as the playing. A lot of band leaders will probably take someone that's a slightly lesser player, but much to get on with.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, 90% hang, 10% gig max, maybe even 95 and 5. Thanks, man. That's so useful. I don't know if anyone watching is going to be hustling festival gigs one day from somewhere, but you know, if they are, that's going to be like super helpful. So, man, I think we'll kind of start to bring it towards the end, which will be our second video. So this one was. So Denny suggested this one, Moonlight in Vermont. The A sections are haikus. So where's get my thumb in screen? Pennies in a stream. Something of a sycamore. Moonlight in Vermont. So it goes 5-7-5.
I never knew that.
Ah, man. Apparently, yeah. So yeah, and Dave Benya here. Thanks for tuning in, David, man.
Cheers, David.
Really appreciating all this. Any Moonlight in Vermont related stories? Have you been to Vermont? I went to Vermont recently. Not in the last year, obviously, but it was nice. Had some like New England IPAs in New England. Is Vermont New England?
Oh, Yeah.
From what,
Oh,
yeah,
was it New Hampshire?
whatever,
It's up
same.
there, isn't it? Yeah.
um, yeah, Vermont. What else to say? Have I written anything down? No, I don't think I
Well, the
have.
only thing I know about Moonlight in Vermont
Yeah.
is that it has there are no rhymes in it.
Yes.
It's one of the only standards that I can think of that where none of the lines rhyme,
Yeah.
and it's got that kind of like are they 10 bar A sections or
There's something
I
out
think
of whack with it, but it
it,
makes perfect
there's,
sense, so you don't even notice.
you don't notice it, but there's a tag on each of the A sections,
Yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And Johnny Smith, the very, very, very great jazz guitarist, whose birthday was last week, recorded a very
Mm,
famous version of this. This
he
people
did,
people
yeah,
might
yeah,
know that.
yeah,
Loads of beautiful chords and stuff.
yeah.
Um,
He did voicings too, didn't he?
he had a couple. He had a few. Um, yeah. All right. Well, hey, Denny, man, thank you so much, man. I know how busy and hardworking you are, man. So I really, really appreciate you carving out some time to record these and to come and talk to us a bit, man. So thanks very much. And I'm very, very tempted by Ronnie's for your for the Hendrix band. So like
I've
September
actually
third and fourth.
I've written the date of yours down as well.
Oh man, yeah. August 5th, people come and come along to Ronnie's, my first main house there with my band. All right, this is Moonlight in Vermont. Thank you so much, Denny Ilett, living legend.
Cheers, Dan.
Hopefully cross paths in the flesh soon. And
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
thanks everyone for tuning in. Andy, David, Tony, and Tom and Andrea and stuff. Nice one, people. All the best. See you soon, Denny. Cheers, mate.
All the best, mate. Cheers.